like, I know Colleen Hoover has integrity in her books. I recognize her writing, however bad it may be.
Hello! Happy Sunday, or I guess Tuesday for you. Welcome back to the Let's Circle Back podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Valentina.
And I'm Kibi.
And today we are revisiting, sort of, a topic that we have done in the past and talking about books, literature, and perhaps some BookTok stuff.
Yes, and this is not very timely because we had this outline sort of put together a while back. But the reason why we wanted to revisit this topic, I guess, really me, is because I was watching Love Island, and there's a contestant in there. Her name is Jen, and she keeps on like mispronouncing words. Her and probably someone else. I don't remember, but someone on Love Island was like saying the epitome of X, Y, and Z. And then Jen would also like, okay, I'll compromise. And that sort of
that's
took me
worse.
out. Yes. Now, I don't know if they did it as a joke, and it's fine, but I was like, wow, literacy out the door.
Yeah.
And then around the same timeline, I also came across a post of Dua Lipa allegedly, or I guess I don't need to use allegedly here, it's a good thing. She built a library filled with banned books.
Ooh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and it occurred around the time of her wedding. I don't know if it took place in the same time period or because of her wedding, these news surfaced of her, but I thought that was really cool. And I know she's also a big reader. She has like a Service 95 book club podcast.
Yeah.
Where she invites like writers to come and she interviews them on various subjects, particularly their books. And I was like, wow, books are the hot topic. Right now.
So many celebrities, important people, cool hot girls are getting into books.
I wonder why.
Actually, that's actually such a good question because I feel like books they're not new. So is it social media? Is it because books get conversations going? Like people on TikTok are really passionate about books?
Well, before we get to that, we have to give out our friendly reminder that this podcast is not affiliated with any brands or companies, and all opinions are our own, and our inclusion of content in this episode is protected by fair use laws. So, let's resume this conversation. Why is it that books are coming back? And this term performative reading is on the rise. So, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I feel like, okay, I'm sure you wrote this down because sometimes I flop. But Coach had mini book keychains earlier this year, and that was a big thing. And then to add on, have you seen the Dior book bag collection?
No.
They also had a series of bags that looked like books or like used books as part of the design. So I feel
I'm searching it up right now.
when I saw that, I was like, oh, gorgeous. I don't know if I think they have like a Dracula one. That's the one that is in my mind right now, but I could also be making that up. But I feel like we're seeing books in places where they typically haven't been in a different way. And specifically with book keychains, books are, similarly to matcha, some sort of fashion accessory now.
Right. Oh, it's like it's very much the antithesis of AI, very curated, and I guess hitting on the concept of intellectualism. Like, obviously, social media is part of the mix, but I also feel like nostalgia.
Ooh. Being
'Cause
offline,
it does
analog.
give very analog, very, like, back then there's no internet type feel, perhaps. Yeah. But to me, that's really interesting because on one hand, we always see this, maybe it's fake news, I don't know, but like there's always this soundbite about how there's a slump in people reading for leisure
Yeah.
or just functional reading to kind of inform yourself. But then you also have brands like Coach and Dior, these big luxury brands borrowing these aesthetics from reading, and also Barnes and Noble seeing an increase in revenue. I think they're on their way to build a couple more bookstores, or did in 2026.
Ooh.
So it's like, what is going on here? Why are we seeing like people becoming essentially dumber and not being able to read, but then books being bought?
I actually have I don't even have a guess as to the answer. I really do wonder what the revenue split is for Barnes and Noble. And if it's like, are they selling more books or are they selling other things and that's making up some kind of gap? That
The
the lack of
merch.
reading. No, I'm like, yeah, are you selling music albums? Are you selling stationery? But I do love I love to see a rise in literature. I was in orientation this week and apparently, allegedly, according to them, everyone in this 70-person group that I was in has read a book cover to cover within the last year, which I know is not a lot, but I was still surprised because I feel like some people really don't care to read at all. I think I didn't answer the question like at all.
No. I think it's valid. I guess there's a couple reasons. Like, as adults, it's really hard to read. But then again, if you put on your screen time and it's not just work and you're on social media,
Yeah.
you have no excuse. You actually have no excuse. But back to the question about decrease in literacy rate, but also this alleged increase in book revenue. I feel like the elephant in the room is BookTok.
And we always end up back in social media.
Yes. I feel like performative reading is on the rise and people are buying books out of various reasons beyond just reading. I feel like I've seen a lot of like book haul videos. These are the new unbox this Friday, Black Friday shopping from Macy's with me. I think that is like the book world equivalent of consumerism.
I actually didn't want to bring it up, but something that does annoy me is people who buy a ton of books before they're ready to read them. And unfortunately, I have recently gotten into this because I think I have 3 books unread right now. But even then, that's only 3. And 2 of them are part of the same series. So when I read one, I'm going to read the other. It's Poppy War and then the second one of the series. But I do get really bothered when people buy a ton of books and then they're like, I have 80 unread books in my house, but I really want this one. Like, stop. That's insane. And if you really like books that much, like, use a digital one instead of always buying a new one just to forget it on your shelf because it looks cool or because it was trendy for a couple months.
In my defense, I
Okay.
do like the look of like a fully decked out shelf. I will admit.
Have you bought a bunch of books that you're not reading?
1, 2, 3.
Hebe.
I have 3 that I
Wait,
haven't
that's
read
fine.
yet.
I'm the same. It's literally the same as me. I think there's people who will do like into the double digits, and I don't love that. It feels a little wasteful, and like you said, it is perhaps performative, like just trying to fit in and be like, oh, I also bought this book, haha.
Yes. Yeah, speaking of performative reading, I know you wrote this question down.
Yes, I did.
Is performative reading okay if it gets you started into actually reading? I think it is. I think it's a good start. Any start is a good start. However, it's if you don't get into reading that bothers me a little bit. Or people, okay, I think there's levels to this. Performative reading is okay if you actually get into reading. Cool. Like, great. That's the end goal. But I feel like there are people who like pretend they like to read, and not just any books, but like these very hard to read books, like classics, like literary fiction, and then
Self-help.
they look down. Steve Jobs memoirs.
Yep.
AI books. Right? That bothers me a little bit because then beyond it, to me, it signals you're not curious about the book. You just want whatever topic the book is talking about to add on to who you are as a person, like your identity.
I think this is sort of similar to what we said in our first ever episode about matcha being like people who don't actually like matcha, but they like the look or the association. Maybe people see, whoa, I'm stumbling all over my words. I think being someone who reads is generally a positive thing. Like, regardless of what genre you read, though, even within that, there's perceptions like, oh, if you read nonfiction, you're better than someone who reads fiction. Like, I don't agree with that, but I think that's the perception. So I feel like a lot of people feel pressure to be like, oh, yeah, I like to read. And then they read maybe like 3 books a year versus when you get someone who's like, oh, I like to read. And in the past year and a half, I've read 50-something books. I think that's kind of how we are. And I think we do it out of enjoyment. And like, oh, like this is genuinely fun. It's a weekend. I'm going to take my book to the coffee shop. Whereas some people feel like, oh, I need to have this thing to hold over others. Because look at me, I read this book. And now I know what, like, I don't know, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. Like, I'll bleep myself in the post. But it's like, okay, we don't have to pretend.
To your point, backing up a little bit, I feel like there's definitely hierarchy in like the book you hold, nonfiction over fiction over like YA fantasy romance. I think that's the general consensus I get browsing through the internet and also in bookstores. So to me, if you're holding an ACOTAR on the subway, you're not performative to me. Like, actually, I salute you for like...
You're so brave.
Yes. Like, sometimes their pages have... I've never read ACOTAR, but like, I would assume there's some explicit smut scenes. So like, imagine someone peeking over your shoulders and looking at you reading that. So I have absolute respect for that, even though I'm not a romantasy or ACOTAR lover. To your point, if I see someone with the subtle art of giving up, I would give a little bit of a side eye, regardless if I think you're performatively reading or not. I'm just like that.
Okay, I don't know if this counts as performative reading, but it's something I just thought of. Performative book reviews. How do I phrase this? Sort of being like, oh my God, everyone loved this, therefore I also love it. Being unable to give a dissenting opinion or a different take. Something that and maybe it's been too long since I reread a couple of the ACOTAR books. I actually I have never thought it's like the craziest spicy. I hate that phrase. But like, I don't actually think it's that insane. And I feel like when people talk about ACOTAR, they're like, it's this hot and steamy love story. I'm like, okay, I don't actually think it's all that. Like, I don't know if maybe people are like real life deprived of what relationships with people are like, but
she said that. I didn't say that.
I feel like people blow it a little bit out of proportion, and then everyone else is also pressured to be like, oh, this is the steamy romance of the century. I don't know. I don't like when I love when people have nuanced takes and are able to do like, I like this and I didn't like this, versus this is the reason everyone liked it and I liked it for that reason too. I don't know if I've made any points.
No, I think you're hitting on something else that we're about to talk about, which is it the plot or is it the trope?
Yes. Okay, transition.
But before we hop onto that, contingent on performative reading, competitive reading. What do we think about that?
I hate that. Oh my gosh. And I think we talked about this in the first time we recorded this, but the idea of reading only to hit a certain metric versus to get something out of the story. I really love when people set goals for themselves, and I do too. But when you find yourself going, like, speeding through a book without properly digesting it, just so you can add one more to your tally, I don't know. I don't think I personally would do that. I'm sure some people don't really care, but I find it a little disappointing. Or like it beats the purpose of reading, because I feel like literature has always been sort of intended to be reflected upon, as opposed to like fast fashion consumed and
fast
destroyed.
Fashion reading. Wow, fast fashion is permeating through every single community.
We need a term for that, but I'm not willing to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And one downside of competitive reading or just these reading apps, not saying that they are the root of the problem, but it also pressures people to set very high goals because to me it seems the quantity of books you read is positively correlated in some of these communities' eyes as how
Yeah.
big of a reader you are. But it's not about the quantity. It's about level of enjoyment, your digestion of the content itself, and just there's also like various life factors
Yeah.
adding to the bunch, but to me it's a bit harmful because I see like people setting 100, 150 books. How?
Genuinely
How?
how? I
And
don't understand.
and I look through their bookshelves and these are thick books. Like thick legit books.
Are we just slow readers? Like I
I
have
don't
such
think
a
I
hard
am.
I think I'm an average pace reader, but I just have such a hard time believing like 2 books a week? That sounds like almost too much.
Yeah. Anyways,
Anyways,
back to the topic. Is it the plot or is it the trope? So I think ACOTAR is a huge, or not a huge, but a prime example of this topic leading into BookTok because if you think about BookTok, ACOTAR is up there.
yeah.
And I 100% agree. I think because social media, in a way, started, I guess, curating a set of books for you where you get to know that a lot of people enjoy. There's a huge fandom rallying behind a certain author, a certain series, that it becomes hard to give differing opinions. I guess this is where unpopular opinions sort of come in, which I really hate. It's not an unpopular opinion, you just have a different opinion.
But that's why it's unpopular because it's different from the general
Ooh,
consensus.
that is
Although
not.
I think unpopular tends to have a negative connotation, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to not like what everyone else likes. So maybe we could just call it something different.
Yes, your opinion.
I think with book talk, as with everything, and as we say every time we talk about social media, I think you said this double-edged sword. Which, by the way, have I talked about this on the podcast before? I really hate that phrase because, of course, the sword is double-edged, but that doesn't matter to you. I think it should be like double-ended or like a hiltless sword because then you would actually. Anyways, whatever. I think there's some really great things about a certain genre or a certain author going viral that, like what was it? The revival of I Who Have Never Known Men. I don't think it's a new book, but got, it got a surge in popularity last year, which is when I read it for the first time. And that's great. But then, like you said, the flip side is you get this sort of herd mentality for something that becomes a representative for a genre or a genre that becomes so dominant. And I'm kind of going all over the place, but I also, maybe we can talk about it later, but I do wonder if romantasy, and fantasy have seen a surge in popularity, with the rise of social media because of real life dating and real life geopolitical turmoil and people looking for a way out, especially women.
That's a good theory, but an interesting one.
Okay.
Yeah, for book talk, again, to your point, brought back a lot of old books that might have gotten lost in the passage of time, such as I Who Have Never Known Men. When was it even written? Anyways, I found it through book talk, admittedly, and it was great. I loved it. Very great piece of feminist literature. And I think BookTok has that power. I think I was looking at some very quick data, but in 2025, Duke Chronicles mentioned that around 59 million copies of books bought were attributed back to BookTok.
Whoa.
Yep. And then I think in the UK or in Europe, the amount of book revenue is in the 200 to 300 million euros attributed back to BookTok. So very
Whoa.
significant numbers here. However, I think one of the biggest downside, for me at least, is because BookTok is so successful that publishers think they have found the success formula, and that means homogenizing every single release that comes out. And this is the point where I hate on romantasy because I'm a hater.
I support that.
Check it out, our last podcast episode. But to me, romantasy is the same over and over, from the look to the feel. For the look, it's always this gothic, moody, dark academic cover with like grapevines and like a particular font. Usually doesn't show the character. And then content-wise, there's, I feel like, 3 major tropes: enemies to lovers, and then this one where it's like you're both the underdog and you kind of find each other, destined ones, like the chosen ones. And then there's one more that I can't remember, but I feel like enemies to lovers is the biggest one. Like,
yes,
the male lead and the female lead always has to start off being enemies, hating each other's guts.
Yeah, like forbidden.
Yes, forbidden romance. Yes.
Oh yeah, the last one is the female protagonist is poor and weak, but also really skinny and beautiful and so strong. And then the male lead is like a prince or the king of like whatever.
Cinderella.
Yes.
Cinderella-esque. The reason why I don't like BookTok genres is because they always preface on or like emphasize on this very emotional and strong hook. There's always a one-liner you can give. For ACOTAR, I think it could be something like, oh, maybe not spoilers, but like enemies to lovers type situation. And then people would immediately grasp onto the concept and be like, oh, I read something like this, therefore I would probably like reading this too. Nothing wrong with it, but I just think as a whole, it's a bit harmful to publishers, or authors who want to deviate outside of these.
Yeah, I was going to say it feels a little bit oversaturated and it encourages monotony. I think I'm using that word correctly. Not to sound illiterate in the literature episode, but I think it encourages a little bit of monotony across the industry. And like you said, I feel like new authors would probably struggle with this the most, because once you're established, you can kind of venture outside what you're known for and experiment. But if you're new and you have some kind of contract with your publisher and you're trying to get something that hits, you're going to use the formula and add on to that pile of books that is already quite popular. I had something else to say that I forgot, but it was sort of in this branch too. If I remember it, I'll come back to it.
Wait, I'm going to look at my favorite books, and then I'm going to pick out a couple, and then we can talk about, is it the trope or is it the plot?
Okay.
Ooh, read this a while ago. Betrayed by Emily Henry.
Oh, and then I read it because you told me to read it.
Yes. Did I fall for it because it's about like a grumpy male lead and then an all sunshine female lead? Hell yeah. But do I enjoy it? Yes, 100%. It is so good. It is one of my very rare favorite contemporary romance novels. Everything else she's written and anything of the similar sort by other people, hate it. Absolutely cannot take and stand these characters. But I really loved Betrayed. And then for one of the books that I also found on BookTok, but I think it's the plot and not the trope, is The Song of Achilles. Do you have any?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know how often I get book recommendations from TikTok versus from you. Like, I can't remember the last time I picked up a book because, oh, maybe, okay, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I have my camera stacked on 5 books, and 2 of them are Hebe recommendations. 2 of them I just picked up while I was walking through the bookstore, and then I think The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue might have been a TikTok recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel like I saw it on Reddit.
Big one.
What about
Okay,
Reddit?
Reddit recommendation.
What about Book Reddit? Who
I love it.
Who up on Book Reddit right now? I like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, actually. I liked it more than I thought I would. Something that this... Actually, no, wait. I want to hear your drama first.
Okay. So I, of course, am both on BookTok and BookTube. And BookTube tea is always piping hot if you're ever on BookTube. It was like a couple of months ago, or maybe even a year ago, I came across this really interesting clickbaity thumbnail of like this book called Shy Girl by Mia Ballard.
Yes, I've heard of this. I don't know why I know that title, though.
Okay, I'm about to get into it. And it's this 2-hour-long video of this creator sort of picking apart the book and giving the criticism and their speculation of, is this book written by AI? Is it AI slop?
That's so bad.
I don't know which one came first, the Reddit accusations against Mia Ballard or this video, maybe both simultaneously, but there were conversations online and on YouTube and in various forums saying that she used AI assistants in writing the book. And it gotten so big that the publisher, which was one of the big 5 publishers, I think, in the US, pulled her book off the schedule. So it was never published, and it ended up being self-published. And obviously a lot of people made a lot of videos following up to the situation, talking about this book in particular, but also to this entire idea of, is it ethical? Is it okay to have AI in the book writing and publishing process? So that's the tea. Not really a tea, but like, what happened? So the big question is, thoughts, feelings?
I hate that. I think we're in a really difficult era where I feel like I said this really recently on a podcast episode too, but I think we're going to see this like huge spike in AI generated everything before people are like, ugh, I'm kind of sick of this. And it reaches a state of equilibrium where it's more balanced. But
I think it's beyond LLM writing the book. It's also in editing. So the author could completely write the book in their own words, but then their editor goes in with AI to edit. So it's also like very gray area there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think anyone should be allowed legally to publish a book written by a GPT. But when it comes to editing, like you said, I think that's more of a gray area because I do think about things like Grammarly.
I thought it was more like coding. So like rules on grammar, whereas to me, GPT, beyond correcting grammar, adds like make optimal changes to words.
Okay. And I feel like that's like another level of it. Are you using it to change your writing or just correct it? Because in journalism, or I guess, sorry, any industry that involves writing, there's always an editor who comes in and makes small changes and is like, hey, you misplaced this comma. But if you're having someone take your base idea and then completely change the tone or the language that you used, is that your work anymore?
Yeah, I think I forgot who. There was another scandal of another author essentially asking ChatGPT to be like, this is my idea, but write it in the tone of X, Y, and Z author.
No.
That's not you anymore.
That's plagiarism.
Hello? Literally.
I don't think you should be able to pass it off as your work. Or at the very least, you have to give them a byline too. Like it has to be John Smith
an organic
and
label.
ChatGPT.
Yes, we need an organic label on books now.
Human made, farm to table, DIY.
You get the gist. See, the thing about AI use in book, I'm sure it puts out readable work. Probably work that are better than some horrible novels. But that takes away the joy. I rather read a Colleen Hoover novel over a perfectly curated AI novel because I know Colleen Hoover wrote her book. Wait, this is such a backhanded compliment.
I don't think you can... I guess it's technically a backhanded compliment, but like...
But like, I know Colleen Hoover has integrity in her books. I recognize her writing, however bad it may be. But like, AI to me takes out the human aspects of it. I read the book not just because of the plot, but because of who wrote it. That to me is very important.
It's also hard to innovate. Mm-hmm. If it has to rely on historical examples, it's never going to be able to do something that's completely new or break boundaries.
Yeah, that's the point of having favorite authors, right?
Yes.
You're buying books because of the person who wrote it, because you're a fan of their style, the way that they articulate. And I feel like because AI doesn't take into account of personal style, personal decisions when it comes to writing, it just flattens it out to just a plot to paper, the end.
Also, AI doesn't have emotions. And I think something about the visual and literary arts is the emotion behind it. There are so many personal and emotional experiences that are processed through music and art and writing that AI can't capture. And maybe it's really like user specific, but one of my favorite things is when I see an author or a singer or a painter that's like, I went through this thing or I had this experience, and then I translated it into a format that everyone else can also experience it with me or process it with me. And you can't get that if you have a machine generate a text for you. Because there's no emotion. And also there's no one to speak to that first person experience.
Again, going back to Colleen Hoover.
Of
Even
course.
if it's bad, it's still good because that's her.
Because she had to sit down and do that. And someone had to look at it and think, yes, let's publish.
Yes. I feel like AI kind of it's made to optimize.
Yeah, of course.
So it flattens out everything that's considered a flaw. But I feel like there are some books with very interesting formats that might be considered a flaw. And if we implement AI to all of this, you won't see that anymore. I'm trying to think if I have a good example.
I feel like this is how you win the time war. Or no, this is how you lose the time war.
Yes.
That's an unconventional format. And I didn't love that book, but I really liked the way it was written.
Exactly. Oh, how is AI going to generate a diary of a wimpy kid or Dark Diaries? Explain that to me.
What does AI know about being a wimpy kid, huh?
But yeah, that's the spiel about AI and the tea.
There's a certain perception of classics and classics being bad, or you can't love a classic, or it can't be genuinely good just because it's written in a different style or because it's a classic. But what is it? There's a book going viral right now that is sort of getting this treatment of people being like, oh my gosh, like I didn't expect it to be so good. Something of Eden? East of Eden?
Oh,
Is that what
East
it's
of
called?
Eden.
Yeah.
John Steinbeck.
I haven't read it, but in the Instagram reel, the person was talking about how this book has gotten an overwhelmingly positive response from people who didn't expect it to be good because it's a classic. And I think I've been through that phase as well of sort of judging. But in high school, I really enjoyed reading Shakespeare, even if I didn't fully understand it. Okay, controversial, I guess. But last year, you had me read Pride and Prejudice. And I loved Pride and Prejudice. Like, it was so good. And it's not this crazy, overstimulating, like, modern romance. It's a very mild version of what you might consider a romantic story. But it was really good. And I think people don't really give classics, like, their credit. They're classics for a reason. They were popular for a reason. Things like Frankenstein and... I didn't like Lord of the Flies when I read it in high school, but Lord of the Flies. These are books that are, like, why would you think that they can't be good just because they're older? I don't know. I don't know exactly what my point is.
It's also like selection, a natural selection for books. Considering that there were multiple books published in the past, if it trickled down to today, it must be good. Like, there must be a pretty big following. aka why it became a classic. But I think there's also another level to it because the US education system is so bad that inherently we have a bias towards reading material or like school material because we're all traumatized by how bad it is.
I also think maybe people are not accustomed to challenging themselves with books, and that's a generalization.
We're accustomed to BookTok books.
Yeah, I feel like it's okay to not fully understand a book or to struggle through it or be like, oh, I don't get this prose. I think I texted Hebe while I was reading Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, I don't really know what this means, but at the end of the day, I like the book. I don't think you need to have an easy time reading to be able to enjoy the book. You're allowed to sit with it and be like, there's a cultural barrier here, or I guess a chronological barrier. But I don't know.
That was me with Wuthering Heights. The old man who keeps on speaking in an accent. I don't think I got anything he said. I still to this day don't know what he said, and I'm like, okay.
And you know what? Same. I also read Wuthering Heights because of Hebe. In fact, I read Hebe's copy of Wuthering Heights, and I liked it enough, despite not fully understanding, that I was pissed at the movie. Like, that's how serious it was. That's a wrap on our literature episode for today. I feel like we covered a lot of topics, but as always, it's so fun to talk about things that we genuinely enjoy. Literacy, a little bit in the context of Love Island, which I don't watch, but you have to tell me if something like that happens again. Performative reading, books in fashion, which is part of performative reading, the plots versus the tropes of TikTok, BookTok to be specific, and then AI, which is a topic we breach sometimes but have not fully delved into, so we might do that in the near future if we can muster up the courage, because that's not one that we're looking forward to talking about, even though we think it's important. But with that, thank you so much for watching today. We hope you pick up a book. If you need recommendations, leave comments, ask us. Please, we read all the time. We are very educated and literate. Like this video, comment if you want, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to never miss an upload. If you want to follow us or keep up with our content between uploads, we do have a presence on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, which you can follow for some pretty cool content sometimes. Thank you so much for watching. We've been your hosts. I'm Valentina.
And I'm Hebe.
And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.